Hey Seekers and welcome to a new video. As I said in the video that I posted yesterday, I'm trying to come back to this channel for good. And to do that, I thought a good idea would be to post a not so late yet August wrap up, and let's get started. Last month, I managed to finish 13 books among 2,632 pages. Out of those, there were 2 mangas, 2 graphic novels, 2 trade paperback comics, 1 poetry book, 2 short story collections, 2 novellas, and 2 actual novels. Out of those, 9 books were 3 stars, 1 was a 4-star, and 3 were 5 stars, so new favourites. All of these were new reads, and I read 11 books in English, 1 book in French, and 1 book in Spanish. After looking at all this data, I'd say that I have had a very good reading month because I managed to get through quite a lot of books, and even if I didn't love everything that I read, I enjoyed most of it. And I found 3 new favorites, so that's really good. I'm going to start by talking about the book that I probably enjoyed the least, which is Six Earlier Days by David Levithan. This book centers around the main character of Every Day, another book by David Levithan, which basically every morning wakes up in a different body. This is a very short book that was directly published in Kindle format, I think, and it entails 6 days from the life of this character, before the plot of Every Day starts. And even if it was really short, sweet, and funny at times, I was expecting more from it because it doesn't add much to the plot that's new. And even if I really like A's character, and this book delves a bit more into his mind and his inner thoughts, I just found this a bit unnecessary. And unless you really loved Every Day, I would say that you can skip it. The next book I'm going to talk about is a graphic novel that I had actually been wanting to read for a long time, and that's Batman Arkham Asylum, a series house and a series of. And this comic follows Batman as he needs to go to Arkham Asylum and confront his biggest villains, and at the same confront his traumas. And I was a bit disappointed by it, actually, because when it comes to the script, I thought it was more often than not very unfocused and chaotic. It kept jumping between the Batman storyline, which I thought was a bit just bland, and the creation of Arkham Asylum and how its creator became mad. And that storyline was a lot better, but it's also accompanied by a very psychedelic and experimental artwork by Dave McCain. Yeah, Dave McCain. And even if I really liked the artwork, it made it even more confusing to follow. So I just was left with a headache and not really sure if I enjoyed the experience of reading it. I would definitely recommend it if you're a really big Batman fan, or if you're just looking for like a very experimental trip to madness. But yeah, don't go expecting a very well fledged out story with very clear motifs. Quick break to remind you all that I got reviews and Goodreads for most of these books, so if you're interested in knowing more about what I thought about these books, I'll leave the link below and you can check them out. The next 2 books I'm going to talk about go hand by hand, and those are volumes 7 and 8 of My Hero Academia, which is a manga series that takes place in an universe where basically, well, most people are born with a quirk, which is kind of a magical, fantastical ability. And the main plot is about this school that helps teens learn how to be superheroes, basically, and figure out what their powers are and how to use them. And until now, I've enjoyed every volume I've read, but these 2, I don't know why, were a bit of a letdown for me. I don't know if I just hit a slump or if I'm a bit burned out of this series and I need to take a break. but especially volume 8 was quite hard to read, probably because of too much Mineta, which is my least favourite character in the series. And I just thought the plot was a bit unfocused as well, and I'm not sure about it. I liked the battles between the teachers and the different characters, but uh, these two are just kind of filler volumes, and I did not enjoy them as much as the other ones, so I hope the series picks up soon. This year, I've also been trying to get more into the DC Comics universe, and to do that, I started reading the New 52 timeline, which is supposedly one of the best starting points. And this month, well, last month, I read Action Comics Volume 1 and Justice League Volume 1 as well, which were pretty good, but the more I think about them, the sour the taste I have in my mouth. I don't know why. But these two were probably just like pointless, stupid fun. They weren't really like, I especially liked the Justice League one because it's got the characters I know the best in this world all together in a fight against Darkseid, which I thought was a bit easy to defeat. But apart from that, it was really fun reading, and even if it's not really deep and there's not much substance to it apart from just, as I said, pointless fun, it's still a good read. And on the other hand, Action Comics Volume 1 was actually a surprise for me because I had never been interested in the character of Superman, and this one made him be more human, likable, and approachable character for me. But even if I really enjoyed the first issues, the last one just felt like out of place. It didn't have anything to do with the main storyline in the comic, and I just thought it was a bit pointless. So I hope the next volumes in this series are a bit more focused and just keep improving on the character. The only French book I've read this month is Super Tremblement, or Fear and Trembling in English, a book by Amélie Nothomb that centers around a Belgian woman called Amélie, like the author, because this is kind of like, it's kind of, Amelie's kind of a fictionalized version of the author. And this character goes to Japan to work in a company as a translator, and mainly due to culture shock and a lot of misunderstandings, she ends up going down and down in the corporate ladder. This book actually revolves around the difference between the Belgian and Japanese cultures and the hypocrisy surrounding what you need to do to be successful in a company. And even if I really enjoyed it and thought that the quirky kind of writing style that this author has really benefited the story, I thought the themes sometimes were a bit heavy-handed, and that's why I didn't give it 4 stars, but it is definitely worth reading. Now that we've talked about the book I read in French, let me talk about the book that I read in Spanish, which is Para quien no brilla la luz, or in English, For whom the light does not shine. And this book, it has been actually written by my father, which was not surprisingly a good bias for me, but it was a negative one since I was more critical while reading it. But I still did enjoy it a lot. This is a vampire story that takes place in Madrid in our day and age. And definitely the biggest strong point for me was the atmosphere that was created. And the writing style introduce you really easily into the setting, story, and characters. Nonetheless, I did want something more out of the characters because I did not really root for any of them except maybe the main woman that we're following throughout the book, and I would have liked to see some more depth to it. I also have some nitpicks, as for example the use of her sex through, like, during a sex scene, because it really gets on my nerves. I don't know why, but that's probably just me. And I'm hoping to see these issues resolved in the next book, because inside Scoop there's going to be 2 more books in this series apparently. So I'm excited for it. Another book that I finished last month was Over the Horizon. As you can see, I've read a lot of ebooks this month, and this was a poetry collection about World War II, especially focusing on Hiroshima and Pearl Harbor, because the author used to live there when she was a child. And this is a collection that would be probably suited more for middle graders, since it presents these really difficult subjects, in a really easy to understand way. And I did enjoy most of the poems, in particular the Pearl Harbor part, but I'm not sure if this book was exactly for me, since it didn't stick with me a lot. Probably because I already know a lot about these subjects and I didn't find anything new or surprising. So I would recommend it for younger audiences maybe, even if it's still worth reading as an older person. The only book that I gave a 4-star to this month was Pumpkinheads, which is a graphic novel by Rainbow Rowell. And I'd say that when it comes to the characters and plot, this book is a 3-star, but the overall cuteness that surrounds this book, yes, just brings it up to 4. This graphic novel follows Theia and Josiah, and they work in a pumpkin fall fair. It's not Halloween, but it's a bit weird, but I suppose it's done in the US. Either way, they have been friends for quite a long time, and Josiah has had a crush on this girl he doesn't know for a year at least, I think. So Deya, as his best friend, decides to help him out and get him to declare on his last night on the patch. This story was frankly pretty predictable, and I already knew what was going to happen at the end, but the characters are really cute. The artwork was just so, I don't know, was so warm, and the colours were so autumny and made me crave reading things that take place in autumn. So I just had to give it 4 stars because it's really heartwarming and brings a smile to your face. Now we're down to my 3 favourites of last month, which are And the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer, Night Shift, and what's the other one? Oh, and iRobot, which is probably my favourite book of the year. I'm not sure. But let me start by talking about And the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer, which is a book by, well, it's actually a novella by Freddie Buckman, and this is about this grandfather that has Alzheimer and his grandchild, and basically how they have to say a final goodbye before the grandfather just is lost to his own brain. So as you can tell from the plot, this was a very hard to read book. It's really nerve-wracking and really sad at its core, but it's at the same time very sweet and funny at times. So I'd say that you should just read it, and you can read it in one sitting. It's really, really short. It will definitely not leave you indifferent. Night Shift by Stephen King is a short story collection that contains, I think, 20 short stories about completely different subjects, and I really, really enjoyed this book. Even the stories that I did not vibe with, I liked, and the stories that I liked are just amazing and new favourites of mine. Among them are probably The Boogeyman, The Ledge, and Quizzes Inc., which is just brilliant. I might do a review of this book and talk more about each one of these stories, but as with the last book, I would recommend going into it blind, because each story is just really special and different in its own way. And yeah, I was also really surprised by how some of these stories are not horror. There are quite a few that are more like drama, family drama especially. And finally, but certainly not least, I, Robot by Isaac Asimov just blew my mind completely. I badly read this book with my boyfriend, and it was just the most amazing experience ever. This is a science fiction classic that deals with the three laws of robotics, which are that a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. A robot must obey the orders given it by human beings except where such orders would conflict with first law, and that a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protections does not conflict with first or second law. This is actually a short story collection, and each story presents a set of circumstances in which a robot or a number of robots are not following these three rules, even if they're supposed to. And the thing that I find the most brilliant about this book is that we need to find a logical explanation to it so that it all makes sense. Since the robots cannot simply disobey what they are programmed to do, they must be breaking these guidelines to actually fulfill them. And the end of each chapter gives you just such a good feeling of realization and of, I don't know, it's just brilliant. I've also got a longer review of this book in Goodreads, and I'll be posting a review on YouTube with my boyfriend soon. So if you want to know more about it, just check those out. So those are all of the books that I finished reading last month. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to leave a like down below, subscribe, and follow me on my social media, which will be linked down below as well. And I guess I'll see you in the next video. Bye!